Bengals will draft Nic Scourton at 17. That's just he's always felt like a Bengals pick to me. And I get that it might not be as obvious now. He's a little smaller than listed and everything. But again, he's a guy that produced very well in the Big Ten at Purdue. He looked like a dominant pass rusher, over 20% win rate, 8 sacks, nearly 30 hurries. And he comes in the SEC. And yes, he didn't have the sack totals, but he still had a good pass rush win rate. He still had good grades on pass rushing and on true passing sets, still well above average run defensive grades, and just played a different role. He didn't get to just truly pin his ears back and rush the passer. I just feel like he's kind of that mix of what the Bengals typically go for, but he kind of also still has plenty of the newer style where, you've seen him rush the passer. Now you've seen him be a good run defender. He just checks a lot of their boxes. I feel like on the field, they're big schools, their production at big schools. And he's just a good player. I get the worries with how he looked at times this year, but again, the what he was asked to do at A&M was just a little bit different than what he was asked to do at Purdue. And I think him coming out and saying that and explaining that, should have eased more minds than it did, because you've only seen him fall and continue to fall in these things. But I still think he's a player that finds himself going in the top 25 that just has a pretty solid NFL career.
Yeah, it's going to feel like we're nitpicking with a lot of these guys, because all of these guys, the reason they're in this range is because they all have a butt, right? Mm-hmm. And the butt with me is with Scourton. You mentioned obviously the production question is there, and the pass rush win rate is still good. So even though the numbers are not there, you're still getting pressure, and pressure is valuable inherently. With the production concerns on top of not testing, that really worries me. Mm-hmm. That is enough of like 2 red flags. I can handle one, right? We're in the back end-ish of the first round of a class that's deep, but maybe not top heavy or very high level at the top, but you're still getting a quality group of prospects here. And if we're sitting here and we're doing apples and oranges to other guys who have 1 question mark as opposed to 2, that might be the difference of kind of narrowing the board from 8 or 9 guys to 2 or 3 guys.
The one thing I love about Nic Scourton here, and I want to get Daniel's opinion too, is this guy loves football. Like it's very hard for me to come across a lot of prospects. Like, obviously you're being considered as a first round pick. Some guys have different motivations, obviously, to make the most money to take care of their family. This dude just loves football. Talking to him at the combine, I very rarely get blown away from a person speaking, but just hearing how much he wanted to prove that he belonged in the NFL. And I believe he talked about the impact his uncle had on him, and what it would mean for him to make it to this pinnacle and prove that he belonged in the league, because he believed he was truly one of the best edge rushers in the class that weren't talked about, because I think A&M's defense as a whole just didn't look amazing, at times. But I like Nic Scourton. I think he's a guy. I think what you're getting with him. I think you're getting a true ball player, a guy that loves football.
I would have Mykel Williams is totally fine to be in this discussion here, and just as in terms of total talent as a player, undoubtedly. But I think the Bengals would just want a better guaranteed pass rusher. Yeah, and the upside with Mykel is great, and that he does a lot of things well. But I just think they might you're
getting a really good run defender.
I love Mykel Williams. I think I would have no problem if he was a pick at 17 in general. I just see the Bengals going towards more of a guy that they trust to rush the passer more.
I usually agree with you on that notion a lot, Logan, and I understand your logic behind that. I just feel like the Amarius Mims thing throws it out the window a little bit to a degree. The reason being is, I know we're talking pass rusher here, but it feels like if you dominated when you were on the field and your tape speaks for itself, which I felt like Mykel Williams at one point in time was being talked about as a top 10 pick.
Yeah.
I feel like
that was preseason though. Like, hey, he takes that next step, and then he was injured this year while playing through it. So like, again, we saw him still be good, but again, it just comes back to you are projecting what he can be as a pass rusher. That's the big thing.
But in large part, they projected with Mims too, to a degree. And so my thought process is,
but that was a strength for what you needed, right?
Yeah,
you needed a pass blocker for the heaviest passing offense. You don't need another run defender when you've invested so heavily into nose tackles and run defending interior players. Do you think that's all he is? I think he is right now. Yeah. Okay. Mykel Williams, I think that you're betting on the upside as a pass rusher. I think he has the ability, but because we didn't get to see it, again, I can bet on what anybody can be, but until you go out there and do it on the field, because in the preseason, we probably all would have bet that Andre Yoshivas was going to take a huge step forward and go for 800 yards. We all bet for that anticipation, but player progression and production is not linear. You don't go up, and get better every year all the time.
I just feel like, go ahead, Dan.
Yeah, Williams for me is
elite run defender. I just want to say that, but like
he fits the size of what the Bengals want. He fits the big school. He fits the experience. The thing with me that is the concerning part is like, hey, and this is due to Georgia once again, many times. It was very limited reps where he was able to pin his ears back and go. And that's where the concern is. And that's where I feel like the discussion is, if we're the Bengals, right, it is, hey, are we willing to say the reps that we saw of him one-on-one, are we willing to bank on that? And I do think he deserves to be in that conversation. And I do think the Bengals could discuss him. For me personally, where the Bengals are at right now, if I'm looking at a championship window, if I'm looking at the roster as a whole right now, I don't know if I could pass up on James Pierce over Mykel Williams right now.
I think something else that, like, I feel like usually is pretty like talked about and valued in the draft circle is age. And Mykel Williams and Nic Scourton are some of the youngest players in the class. And 100%. I feel like, you know, not that gives, you know, it gives a little bit more hope for development and, you know, things, but just in general, like they're both not even gonna be 21 on draft night. So I just feel like I feel like that's usually something people love. And I feel like we're just not hearing it this year with them. And like, I kind of get it because there's other concerns, but not being 21 on draft night, being a 19 years old and many in your seasons at Georgia and being as physically dominant as you were is super appealing. Same thing for Scourton. Posting a nearly 30% pass rush win rate as a 19-year-old is nuts.
It comes back to, okay, so you're going to be 20 years old, and we're talking about how you have this great ceiling to develop to. Again, it comes back to, one, do you have a plan, and do you trust yourself to develop them? Which right now, hands up, anybody believe in them to develop anybody in the trenches based on any of their offensive or defensive line projects?
I hate their
no. Okay, great. Glad we cleared that up. So again, if we're saying, yeah, in like 2 or 3 years, if they're developed well and everything goes well, they can hit this awesome ceiling. That's great. But what does that do for you now as a roster that wants to win right now, that needs pass rush right now? What does that do for you for a coaching staff and maybe even a GM, or at least organizational infrastructure is on the line right now to where you're kind of putting all your chips in one basket? I don't know if you're taking a project again after you've already taken Myles Murphy and it's like, hey, this is year 3. This is when you're supposed to be hitting with that project.